People are constantly raising the bar.
Sacrifices need to be made.
What would you guys say are your biggest weaknesses?
You or your enemy right now?
Their success of life.
Just a fucking podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Hypertrophy Hustle Show. This week I'm speaking to Colby Sousa. So, again, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. So, Colby works as the content creator for the PT Collective. Hopefully you know what that business is. It's a fantastic business. I've had Luke on before. Absolutely fantastic business. And then he also is doing his PhD at Auckland University of Technology, same place as me, although I'm only in my undergrad. And he's doing that under Dr. Eric Helms. So he's done some fantastic research on stuff that is literally right up my alley. So I thought it would be a good idea to have this conversation. So, Colby, who are you? What do you do? How did you get to where you are today? And what was your general path?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm a big fan of it, and it's really an honor to be here, so I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I first got into, so we'll start from the beginning, what kind of sparked my interest with exercise. When I was younger, I was really overweight, and I did no sports, and I liked being around my family, my mom and my dad. I was a big mama's boy, and I liked being around them and just playing video games, and I didn't like interacting with other humans. And after a while, that just kind of backfired, so I gained a lot of weight really quickly, and just being overweight just kind of really being made fun of, and just I didn't like that. So I decided to try out American football, because I was like, oh, those guys are pretty big and I'm pretty big, so I think I should fit. But in the younger age groups, they have weight limits, and I didn't make that weight limit by over 20 pounds. So it was pretty devastating for me. It was like I could finally found a place where I fit in, but I can't do it. So from there, I actually went online. It's like, okay, how to eat properly, how to train and do all this. And I was on the bodybuilding.com forums, reading all the magazines in the grocery store. So I started to get the interest of learning how to exercise and eat properly. And just from there, I got into football. Then I did soccer and sports. But at my senior year of high school, my sports just kind of stopped. There were no teams that I could play for. So I really enjoyed the training. I was like, let me actually start to lift weights. So I signed up for the gym, but I didn't actually go to about 8 months later, because I was still afraid of going into the gym. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. People are gonna make fun of me. I'm very self-conscious. So it was tough to get in there. But once I got in there, I just fell in love with weights. So then that kind of sparked me getting more interested in learning more about exercise and nutrition. So I went to the University of Rhode Island, where I did my undergraduate, and I got my degree in applied exercise science. And from there, I just really craved more knowledge, and I really wanted to learn more. And I like this setting. I like to learn more, so for myself, but also so I can pass this information on to other people, because I like helping people. I don't want people to go through what I went through when I was younger, and I want other people to see how beneficial training and nutrition can be, not only physically, but mentally too.
Yeah.
So then as I was getting more and more into actual research, I came across Dr. Mike Zordos, and this was in my undergrad. And I remember I would be walking to classes and listening to him on a podcast while I was going to class. And I'd actually learn more from him on those podcasts than I did in actual classes. So, it was like, he's really well known in the industry. Yeah. He is someone that I feel like I can learn a lot from. So that's what made me go down to Florida. And that's where I did my master's. And there it was interesting, because at first I don't like research. It sounds boring to me, because I thought it was just playing with mice and blood in the biology lab. And for me, that was boring, because after a while, I actually came to like people. And now I love people and being around them. So for me, just being in the lab stuck all day wasn't for me. And I had a pretty bad experience trying out research in the undergrad, where it was similar to that. So I was like, nope, research, not for me. And I don't know what else I want to do, so I just like learning. Let's go to master's. When I got to there, I remember I asked Dr. Zordos, I was like, first day of class, I was like, hey, I was the guy that was emailing you all summer saying I'm really excited about learning. And that's me. But I asked him, how can I learn the most and make the most out of my time here at FAU? And he said, if you want to do that, come to the muscle lab. So the next day, I went to the muscle physiology lab. And I remember I opened the door, and there's just a Leco rack set up, Leco plates, and a couple of guys just lifting with music blasting. I'm like, this is my place. I like this. And I came to find out that they were doing the research, basically the applied aspect of resistance training. And to me, I didn't know that can be considered research. So I was like, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. I just didn't know I could. And I didn't know could fall under the term of research, because I always and in the quest of knowledge, always had questions, and I liked trying to answer those questions. And that's basically what research is you think that question and you do your best to come to some answers. So with a master's there, I learned so much, and a lot of opportunities arose from that, and I was really excited to be there. And actually, my first semester there, that's actually when Dr. Eric Helms was there collecting for his PhD data. And I remember I was like, that's the guy that I know for like so long too, because I would always follow his stuff. I remember I was like, saw him on, I think, Matt Ogus's podcast once on YouTube video, and I'm like, I know these people. He's like, he's gonna be here? No way. So I was fangirling for sure.
I think we've all done it with Eric at some point, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still do. Even when I see him there all the time, I'm like,
yeah.
oh gosh. And the same thing with Dr. Zervis. He'll send me a message, and I'm like, oh gosh, no way. Like, it's so cool. So if they hear this, oh geez, sorry, but yeah. Just being honest, it's all about that.
Same here, yeah.
So,
same here. I think it's something hard to get over because it's like, oh shit, I watched their videos on YouTube for so long, and it's like, oh damn, like the amount of hours you've spent listening to them when they don't know you're listening to them. They know people listen, but it's like then you meet them and they're like, whoa, you're a real human being.
Yeah,
like, fuck.
And they're even cooler in person.
Yeah,
and you learn even more from them in person.
Yeah.
And it's like, as much as we joke, it's like fangirling, but it's really that appreciation for who they are and what they do for this industry. And that's why. Yeah, and that's why when I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career and my path, I was like, I want to have an advisor and have someone, a mentor, that's really going to be the best for me. And that's why I reached out for those guys. That's why I went from Rhode Island to Florida to all the way to New Zealand across the country. I've never been outside the country before that, but I knew that these were the places that were going to be the best for me. And I followed that. So, and now I'm here in New Zealand where I'm doing my PhD, and I'm around this group of amazing people who are like-minded, and they really want to answer these questions, and they enjoy research. And the applied part of it, which I think is huge, is actually what can we use with this knowledge that we're learning. So, I mean, that's kind of this education aspect. And through being here, of course, like all the connections with Eric and Zordos, I was able to get a position with Luke at the PTC. Yeah, so now for about a little bit over a month now, I've just been creating the Instagram content that's been putting on their page, and that's been really awesome because it falls in line with my mission statement of wanting to help multiple people, getting that good education out to others, and making it accessible for people to use. So I've been able to do that, and it's really cool. So I'm excited to continue on this path and continue to hopefully reach out to more people, help them out, and just get the good information out there and tell people lifting weights is fun. You should do it.
And kind of like I think it's a very it's the thing where it's like we're never gonna have enough information out there, and it's always trying to figure out that balance between like, okay, do we need to put it out in a simplified form? Do we need to just do the high level stuff? And I think you've got a good sort of balance of doing pretty much everything. It's like covering all bases, which is like I think very, very hard to do because it's like typically there's a lot of people in evidence-based fitness where we sort of think, oh my gosh, like we know how to say it to each other and like to our colleagues, but to like get it down to the layperson is very, very difficult. It's like, how do you go about communicating that to them? And someone who's just walked in the gym, how do you communicate like, okay, if you lift weights, you're not going to get too bulky. Like it's just, there's so many benefits, and trying to communicate that is often difficult, but it's like very, very fulfilling, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm trying to reach as many people as I can. So it's hard going from in the beginning of the day where I'm writing stuff for my PhD, and then I have to make an Instagram post for PTC that's one page, and I'm like, there's so much more I could say though, and then I'm gonna get all these questions. It's like it's hard, to have that balance, but like you said, it's important. That information needs to get out there, because when you think about it, the people that actually, people like you and I that are nerd out on the science and really enjoy reading it and listen to all these podcasts and fangirling over these people, that's a very small amount of people, and those are the main people that are actually reading this stuff, listening. So that's a very small. So we want to get that information to more people, so then they can hopefully, fall in love with training like we do, and nutrition, and like whatever way that may be, but in some way just getting that information to them.
Yeah, and figuring out the best way to do it, because it's definitely difficult, because it's you're taking complex things and trying to distill them down, figure out what the layperson actually needs to know, and it's definitely it's cool to see that you got both aspects, which I think is fantastic. But in terms of the research, should we start with that? So
Yeah.
What was sort of your first insight into research? What was the first sort of projects you did in terms of research, and what was the general story behind those? What generally happened there?
Yeah. So I remember since I started following, Sordos about learning about RPE, and like this just makes so much sense. It's really cool, I like how easy it is to use, well, kind of easy to use, and then it just seems so practical. So when I started to do my training based around RPE, I was terrible. I was like, I really don't know if I'm at an 8 RP. I maybe could do 2 more, or maybe I could do 10 more. I'm not sure. So it was hard to actually get good at it. So I wasn't really applying it to the best that I could. So then I had this question, like, well, how can we get better at RPE? And in my mind, like, well, if we take a set to failure, we would then have the idea, like, oh, okay, that's what failure training is like. That's what a full set to failure is. Because then nowadays, like, since we know, like, you don't always need to be trained to failure, that's not normal for us. So maybe taking it there for like a set or two might be good to see what failure feels like, and then you can have a good gauge on your actual exertion in the set. So I was talking to Zordas about it. I was like, can we do something like this? Maybe we take people to failure in a set or two, and then based off of that, he's like, well, I actually did something similar, and I'm doing something similar now. So what they did was, and I was able to help out, which is really cool. So they took a bunch of people and resistance trained men. So it's something that we can apply to other resistance trained people. And they had them do as many reps as they could with 70% of the squat in one set. And what they had to do, they had them shout out during the set when they thought they were at a 5, a 7, and a 9 RPE, and then just go to volitional failure. So if they're going to go lift, and then 5, keep going, 7, 9, etc. And then afterwards analyzing to see how accurate they were. So if they said they're at a 9 RP, that means they could do 1 more rep. So looking after, did they do 1, did they 2, or did they do 0? So seeing how accurate they really were with that. And that was really cool because the thing we noticed is that people were, very accurate, but the closer to failure they were, the more accurate they were. So 9 RPs were a lot more accurate than a 5 RP, which kind of makes sense because, being able to do 5, maybe 6 more reps, that can be difficult to gauge. But at a 9 RP, you have a pretty good idea if you could do 1. Yeah. So that was really cool. Another thing we noticed from that was that the more reps in a set you do, the less accurate it was. Because we had a pretty big range of people's capabilities of how many reps they could do. So the more reps people did, the less accurate they were. So if you did less reps, you were more accurate. So pretty much sum it up, less reps and closer to failure you are, the more accurate you're going to be with RPE. So that was, go ahead.
I think it's quite RPE is such an interesting tool because, like, especially in bodybuilding, you'll get a lot of people, like, I think you get a few people bashing RPE nowadays because they think, oh, it's so hard to gauge. And one of the arguments I've heard is, it's like it changes day to day, and it's like, yeah, like RPE takes that into account. It's like it's your RPE on the day. Like, it's not like we're saying it's not percentage of 1 rep max, your 1 rep max ever. It's like it's a quite a nice dynamic system of like subjectively measuring. Well, I guess, is it a subjective measure or is it objective, would you say?
I'd say it's more subjective because it's how you feel. And it's like sometimes like, people say how you feel is a lie, and it's like the performance is what matters. So like sometimes you'll say you're an 8 RP, but your velocity, for example, if you have access to that, it will be higher. So technically that's not correct. So it can be more subjective based on like how you're actually feeling. But I feel like it still just has a lot more use because, like you said, the goal is to account for those daily fluctuations and those person-to-person fluctuations. Because we saw like in that first study, it was that people with 70%, they could do anywhere between 8 and 16 reps. So if you think about it, if you have someone and they're in a program, they're supposed to do, say, 3 sets of 8 at 70%. Think about that range. Some people, that's going to be maximum effort for them. And others, that's not even going to be close to them. So some people won't get enough of a stimulus, and others may not even be able to finish that, potentially risking injury or just ruining the rest of their training. So that's why the RP, it's a good comes to play, saying you're supposed to do 3 sets of 8 at an RP 8, whatever weight that might be for that day. It'll account for lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, or whatever's going on that day. So I think that's where it really plays a big role, is for that. And it's cool.
And in terms of RPE, do you want to briefly explain, basically, because I know there's 2 different types of RPE. We have the one that was, I think I can't remember when it was, but it was by Zordos and Helms, right? They changed RPE a bit, sort of modified it a little bit. you want to go into the sort of two types, the one that's primarily used, or?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're talking about the first RPE, like the Borg scale, the 6 to 21, are you talking about that one? Yeah. So yes, that was the first kind of scale that was used for RPE, and it was a 6 to 20, 6 being minimal effort, 20 being maximal effort, and that was mainly created because it had a good correlation with heart rate. So it was mainly used in cardiovascular activity. So when it came to using that for resistance training, it didn't really make much sense. And since you have a lot more numbers, it was just a little tricky to actually translate it to resistance training.
Yeah.
So what they do is that the RPE, the repetitions in reserve, rating of perceived exertion, so RAR-based RPE, is the 1 to 10 scale, where 1 and 2 are just little to no effort, because again, like far away from failure, you don't really know. You can't really quantify. I could do 22 reps exactly.
Yeah. Pretty hard.
And then, 3 to 4 effort, but pretty more exerting than the one before. And then when you get to 5, 6, 7, 8, so it'll correspond to repetition reserve. So for example, a 6 RP would be meaning you could do 4 more repetitions to go to absolute maximum effort. So that means 10 maximum effort, 9, I could do 1 more rep, and then you can start playing around with the 0.5s too. So you get like 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, where an 8.5 would mean I could do 1, maybe 2 reps. So that's where we kind of have a little wiggle room, but again, not too much where it's more difficult to do. Because if you're like, I'm at an 8.27, therefore I could do 1. No, you're just kind of complicating it. It's like you could definitely do 1, maybe 2, and then leaving it there. So I think it's a really practical way to use it, because you're gauging it based off how many reps you could do to maximum effort.
Right. And then in terms of, because I know you mentioned velocity before, at what RPE, or how do we generally know in terms of velocity? Because I know at some point velocity will slow down, and that's an indicator of a specific RPE. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's interesting because there's not too much research on that, but with the stuff that I did from my master's, which we'll talk a little bit about next, we're actually making a second paper where we're going to be talking about that, where this velocity corresponds with this average RPE. So you can kind of make that link to it. People are used to using velocity, then they can also use RPE in conjunction, because they're both really good tools. We're not saying that RPE is the best and everyone should use it, because there's a time and place for everything. RPE, of course, is very useful. And I think the biggest thing is that it's practical, because you don't need to buy expensive equipment for things like velocity. So it's easily accessible to everyone. But again, like we said, we were trying to look at how accurate people are with it to make sure they can use it. So I think that's where it's really good. But it'll be cool to see in the future once we actually do the analysis of the data. It should be relatively soon. So that paper will be out, seeing kind of combining the two and where and when it can be used together, both RPE and velocity.
Yeah. And then what was sort of the details of that paper?
So like I said, we just started doing it recently, so we don't have anything. But basically, we're taking it from my master's. So I can talk about my master's first that I got, and then we can talk a little about that second paper. Yeah. So I mentioned the first study where we did the single set of the squat with 70%, main one that Zordos did. So what I wanted to do is build a lot off that, because I had more questions. So what we did is we did 4 sets to volitional failure with 80% of 1RM with the squat, bench press, and the deadlift. So we wanted to see basically how accurate they were in general, how accurate they were between lifts, how accurate they were from set 1 to set 4, and now seeing with a different percentage, so with 80%. So like I said, typically you're not going to be able to do as much reps, so we can kind of narrow down that range where we have more accuracy, because like we said, more repetitions equals less accuracy. So we're closing down that range, we can get as accurate of ratings as possible. So that's what we did, and it was really cool. So we had them come in, they would do their squat, bench, deadlift, 1RMs, and then it would be week 1, they would do either the squat or the deadlift first. We would randomize that, so it would be different. So they came in, they did their squat, they would do 4 sets for as many reps as they can with the 80%. So what they would do is when they were lifting, they would shout out when they're at a 6 and a 9 RP, or if it was easier for them, saying 4 reps left and 1 rep left. And again, so we did the same thing where we compared to see the accuracy between that, so how accurate they were. Right. So we did that across the 4 sets for squat, bench, and deadlift. So we had a lot of data. And so the main thing we saw, a couple of similar things to the first one, that more reps in a set equals less accuracy. So the less reps you do, more accurate you are. Closer to failure you are, the more accurate you are. So things we already know, we're kind of building on that base again. But since we had 4 sets, it was really interesting. With the squat and the deadlift, set 4 was more accurate than set 1. So if you're thinking about it, they're getting used to using RPE in a way, because it's like, all right, I already did this 3 times. I kind of am understanding how this works, and I'm getting better at it. And also, so there's that, and there's also the fact that they did less reps in set 4 compared to set 1. So again, building off of that idea. So that was really cool. But it was weird with the bench press that people were actually more accurate in set 1 versus set 4.
Right.
Yeah, and we were like, we don't really know why. So we have a couple of speculations on why we think that happened. So, I mean, anecdotally, for me in bench press, I'm like, okay, I could see that, because if I'm doing a set of 8, like, reps 1 through 6, super easy. Then all of a sudden, rep 7 is like, whoa, that's pretty difficult. And I'm like, I don't know if I can get this 8 one. It's like, for me, fatigue ramps up pretty quickly. And so with this, since there's less musculature used in the bench press, because you're using chest, triceps, shoulders, that's not as much as a squat or deadlift. We're using your entire lower body and pretty much your full body. So that means fatigue technically can ramp up quicker since you're using less musculature. So there was that we thought might be, and just because, or like, if you're going to failure each time, especially with the bench press, it's such a smaller range of motion. Maybe you think you could do a lot more than you originally could. So again, we're not exactly sure, but based off the data we have, that's what we found, and that's what we think could be some potential reasons behind that.
I think it's very interesting to think that, because it's sort of like, it's. Do you think there's any applications of that, like anything we can take away in terms of, like, basically, especially with the squat and the deadlift, it's like, since we're using so many muscles, there's such massive lifts compared to the bench press. It's like, maybe there's something we need to think about in terms of how we apply that in, like, say for instance, a powerlifting meet or something like that. Or another interesting thing would be to think about sort of how, I'd love to see how quickly or how much it takes how many sessions of using RPE it takes someone to sort of get used to it and actually understand it. Because even myself, I'm still sort of, and I mean probably for a long time, still trying to figure out sort of how, okay, what exact RPE am I, where am I generally sitting at? And then it depends on the exercise. Like for something like leg press, it's like so hard to measure, because it depends how you, like, if you think about breathers, like, okay, are we doing, how many breaths am I allowed per rep, like between reps, and like, it's just, it feels like you'll feel like you're in an RPE 9, and then, okay, no, I've got 3 more, okay, we'll do 1 more, and it's just like, it's very, I think there's a few exercises where it's sort of definitely more difficult. Do you think, is there anything in terms of exercises where RPE might not be applicable, or it's sort of just less accurate, or exercises where it's like crucial, or?
Yeah, so I'm going to give the good old science answer of it depends. and you hear that a lot, but it really does, because so we looked at specifically squat, bench, and deadlift in well-resistance trained men. So we had people who were training for at least 2 years that can squat and deadlift 1.5 times body weight and can bench at least body weight. And we had Wilks scores, which is basically like your overall, like, total strength, and comparable, well over 300 average. So some really strong people. So we can't. It's hard to say how quickly people might get onto RPE, especially if they're a novice lifter. But so one other thing we did find, because we took a lot of, like, characteristics of our lifters, we had a really big training age. So we had people an average training age of 7 years. But individually, we saw that people with greater training age were more accurate at gauging their RPE. So I think it just comes with using it and becoming experienced with it and knowing how you are as a lifter. Like I said earlier, for example, like for me, bench press, I know fatigue ramps up pretty quickly within a set and from set to set. So I know for me, I can't really make a big jump from set to set, or maybe I should stay the same weight. So I know that's for me. For some people, it could be the complete opposite. So I think it really depends on the person. But I would just recommend they just continue to use it and get better at it, because we see it over time, a training age, and using it makes a difference. So actually, which is interesting, is one thing we did find. So we asked, like, experience of RP, like how well people have used it, and we saw that it really didn't make that much a difference. Yeah. So like we had an average of like, so in the middle RPE. So 1 being like I never use it, 5 means I use it all the time. We had an average of 3. So like the average of some people use it, some people never use it. But it didn't really make a difference of how much they used it. It was more so the training age that was more important in an indicator of their accuracy.
That's something that you would not necessarily expect, because you'd think, okay, it's a skill that you just actively think about, and sort of, I guess, even understanding RPE, some people might not really understand. They might think, okay, it's a scale of 1 to 10 of difficulty, but it's kind of a bit more complex than that. So it's like sort of understanding the specifics around it as well. And I think, that's definitely something you would not expect, because you would sort of think, okay, training age, like, because I guess some people can train for years and years and years but train terribly, and some people can train for like 3 years and train perfectly and have the best training ever. So it's very I think that's quite an interesting thing. But I think one thing that I'd like to get your thoughts on is a lot of coaches nowadays will tend to either use like RPE or use like RIR, and I guess essentially are they effectively, for coaches, very, very similar metrics, basically do the same thing? Or do you think, is there a better one, or a more easier one, or one that you found works better when you're using when coaching? Is there something that you think might work better when trying to use it as to apply someone if they're relatively new, basically in terms of RIR versus RPE?
Yeah, so typically people respond better to RIR, so that it's easier for them to say, I have 4 reps left, than saying, okay, let me look at this chart. Okay, I have 4 reps left. That means I'm at a 6 RPE. Yeah. So they can do that, but for them it's just easier. So when we were doing the study, and like studies we're doing now, we just say, okay, how many reps do you have left? I have 4 reps, and then we write down RPEs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So typically people respond better to that, and so it's just because it's easier to say.
Yeah, but it's effectively the same thing. From 6 to 10 RPE is effectively 1 to 4 RIR, or
yeah. So a 6 RPE would mean 4 RIR.
Yeah.
A 7 RPE is a 3 RIR. 8 is 2 RIR. 9 is 1. So they're the same exact thing. It's just the way you ask it and the way you kind of look at it could make a difference, but they're the same thing. Yeah.
Cool. I've learned something already. I had no clue about that, because I think my knowledge of RIR was like, okay, 9 is definitely of 1 RIR, and then sort of from there it's blurry. So it's like, I think that's the kind of thing where I think people will take a lot from that, and I think it's very it's a cool thing, because I think so many people use it, but then I feel like I'd love to see how many people are using it as it's made, or just sort of using it as a scale of difficulty, and not really seeing the sort of the 6 to 10 thing and all that. They're not really seeing. I'd love to see that, how many people are using what, and what people perceive RPE as being.
Yeah, because especially sometimes in more novice lifters, you'll see that they're like, yeah, I could do 10 more reps. How do you know that? It's like, maybe you could. I'm not saying you can't. Maybe you could, but it's really hard to know that. So we're like, okay, is it little to no effort or light effort? Like if you had to pick one of those. So it's like I said, it's not, and the research will backs it up. Like we said, it's harder to gauge the farther out you are. But with that 6 to 10 RPE range, or that 4 to 1 RIR range, or 0 RIR, that's where we're more accurate, and that's where it's most applicable. Because even myself, I'm like, light effort, I really don't know. I know when I can do 5. Yes, I know I can do 4, but like anything past 5, I really don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And you don't typically train less than a 5 RP anyway. You know what I mean? So it's not like something that's applicable, because you want to make sure you're training properly and you're getting an effective stimulus. So it's not like you're going to use that anyway. So
yeah, and I think it's something that I wish. Like I was talking with, it was Joe, TSA, and Kedrick yesterday, and
great. They're awesome.
we were talking about basically why, like, you should, for the most part, in either powerlifting or bodybuilding, be working sub-maximally a lot of the time. And I feel like people still don't like. There's a lot of people who still don't think that's a good idea, or they think. They still have that bro mentality where it's like, no, man, balls to the wall all day. And it's just like, I don't know, we have so much research to back up working sub-maximally, and then even anecdotally, it feels like, why would you not? Like, I guess it's hard to measure in terms of like hypertrophy, but it's like, I don't know. For me, it's very puzzling why people are still against the idea of working with some reps in reserve.
Yeah, I think for us, especially since we're so well versed in the research, we're like, it makes so much sense to use it. But if we kind of take a step back and maybe think about why people aren't doing it, a lot of times people will maybe who aren't like just well resistance trained, or they just like to lift. They want to come out of the gym feeling like they did something, and a lot of the times like that soreness and like I went to failure. I know I gave it my all. For them, that's confirmation that they're training hard, and they just don't know that might not be the best for them. So while you're going to see some gains with that, yes, of course, because you're doing more training and you're likely to do more over time. It's not really optimal, and then that's where we come in, and the education part comes in. Where we're like, hey, did you know maybe you could get more out of your training if you're training Sub-maximally, and then maybe introduce them to research, not like saying go read this, saying this research found this, and making it easy to understand and telling them why they could be using it. Then we could be opening their minds, because I think the way we approach novice lifters and people who maybe just aren't well versed in the research is huge, and a lot of people do it wrong. And they're like, oh, you're an idiot, like, you're doing this wrong, why would you do that, you should be using RPE. They're not going to respond well to that. And then you're potentially losing out on someone that could be gaining more and could be learning more and just enjoying training more. So I think the way we approach the people who don't know is a big thing, and we need to start doing that a little better.
100%. That's literally the next question I was going to ask, because I think that's something that I struggle with so much. It's something that something that I did a few months, I'm going to say a year ago because that sounds better. Is I was sort of hating on like F45 a little bit and stuff like that, and it was like, I think the approach I had to the conversation wasn't beneficial. It's like, that's not going to make people who are doing that want to think about things differently. And I think it's something that I spoke with Eric about this, must have been like last time we did a podcast, like 6 months ago or so, and it was like, I'd say my biggest, and I think it's so common once you get into like quote evidence-based fitness, it's like people it's very easy to get on the horse of like, fuck, I know what's better, I know the evidence-based approach, blah blah blah, and it's so hard to actually have that conversation in like a humble, open, nice way that actually makes people open to thinking about your perspective. And that is the thing that I would say in terms of communication is my number one flaw. It's like I'm so bad at like just taking it from a slow approach, not a like, what are you doing? Oh my god! Like it's so hard to hold yourself back.
No, definitely, especially when you see certain, again, quote unquote, influencers who are like, hey guys, do this. This will for sure get you gains, and like, look at my booty, buy my program, and it's like, oh no, like that's the complete wrong approach. And yeah, we can get mad about it, and then when people ask like, what are you doing? Like, well, again, that's just gonna be the opposite of what we want. So one thing I like to do in approaching situations like that is I really like to make the other person think critically. So it's like, oh no, someone comes to me and they're not using RP, for example, and I'm like, okay, well why aren't you using RP? Sometimes they don't know. They're like, oh, I really don't know. Someone else that I follow said it's dumb, so I did that. So it could be that, or so getting them to really think about it. Because sometimes they come to the answer to themselves, which is cool. You see that like light bulb moment.
What sort of like phrases would you use to prompt that?
Why?
Basically,
why? So it'll be like, so someone's like, so could you give me more an example, and I can kind of do so. So I'm at the gym, I'm training. You see me, and you want to ask me a question. What do you do?
Fair.
Go ahead.
And you just, because I guess it's very. I find I'll commonly approach it from. We'll be just having a normal conversation, then I'll be like, oh, that's actually not true, or I'll like if they say something about, for instance, like keto, the classic one, like anything like that, it's like, and then it's like, I think I find I need to learn more how to navigate that discussion in a better way and figure out better ways to.
So in that example, if you were to say, oh, that's not true, I think that sets the precedent of it being a bad talk already. You know what I mean? Because while we know maybe that's not true, it could be technically beneficial for some people. Sure, keto does have its place. But even if it didn't have it for that specific person, we can't say that's not true, because then they're gonna think, oh, this person's gonna come in cocky, or like I'm gonna hear more crap about how bad this is because everyone else keeps telling me.
Exactly.
So again, potentially missing out on someone we could help. So we could be like, oh, so if they're like, oh, I do keto, it's definitely really good for me. And it's like, oh, cool. Like, well, why do you do keto? Oh, I feel like it works for me. That's really, oh, well, if it works for you, that's good. It's like, do you have any like research that can maybe back that up? Like, what's building your rationale for doing it? It's like, I just want to know, because maybe I can learn something new too. So if we're coming in with that mindset, they're like, wow, this person actually is being considerate and they care. So I can actually open up to them. And they'd be like, well, I really don't have any research, but I saw this one guy say it, and it's like, well, cool. If that's enough reason for you to do it, sure. But did you know there could potentially be other reasons? Maybe you're not getting the most out of your training because you need carbohydrates for your training in keto. You know what I mean? So you could potentially doing better. And they're like, I would like to do better. I would like to gain more muscle. So, we're leading them to those answers themselves by making them critically think. So I think their approach to those questions and those people is everything. And just really being open-minded and coming with an open heart too.
Yeah. So. Is there anywhere you've in particular learned those sort of skills? Because I find there's not, like, I feel like it's a very evidence-based fitness problem. Like, there's not many other places. Oh, I guess there is, but it's very, there's nowhere online that I've sort of seen that's been like, hey, this is where you learn how to not be a dick when trying to teach people about stuff, and it's trying to not have this like holier than thou sort of or not make them feel like you're saying you're wrong, and having that aggressive thing. Is there any way you've found to learn that sort of stuff? Or
a lot of it just came from my experience, and like I said, I had bad experiences where people were constantly making fun of me, and I didn't have anyone to talk to about my nutrition and my training, and my parents were always very supportive, but they didn't know anything about that. And so it's like, I really want to see as many people succeed as possible, and I want to see as many people happy as possible and loving what they do. So if you start coming from that approach, that's when you start answering those questions in a better way, being more open to how people are acting, and just understanding. So like you said, you don't know what people are going through, you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but ask them that. You know what I mean? So it's more of a thing of experience. And then I'm just lucky to be around. They're not lucky. It's I chose to be around good people. So ever since growing up, I was always true to myself. I was really out there. Like, I was like quirky, and I liked being funny, make other people laugh. And some people don't like that, and I'm like, that's okay. I love who I am, and I want to be true to myself. And if people don't like that, that's okay. I don't need to please everyone. So, and then once you start being your best self, you'll start attract the people and the things that are best for you. And so I think that's where it started, where I'm surrounding myself with good people who lift me up and will inspire me and put me on the right path. And then I'm practicing those things every day and hoping to inspire others to do the same. So I think if you want to learn how to be better at talking with people and being understanding, you have to yourself be more understanding, and then just surround yourself with good people.
I found this podcast has been a good, like, every time I talk to someone new, it's like I'm sort of, it's like by the act of me asking them on as a guest, I'm trying to humble myself and basically say, you are the expert, let me listen, right? And it's like, it's very, very rewarding, because it's like, damn, it's like I feel like I'm cheating the system. I get to like sit there and like listen to people like Eric, like Greg Knuckles, like Mike Igitel, and just talk to them and be like, and man, it's mind-blowing. And it's just like, I want to figure out how to be in their position and teach the person below me, and sort of understand how to instruct at that level, because I think they like so many of the guests have learned how to do it so well. And I think like science communication is such a difficult thing to master. And yeah, it's definitely something that I think I hope in time I'll get better at. Hopefully.
You definitely will, because you might not know, but you're already 10 steps ahead of the game. Because like I said, to be able to go out and ask these people, hey, can you be on my podcast? Like I look up to, and I appreciate who you are and the information you provide, and it would be an honor for me for you to help me learn, and then also the people who are listening to this to learn too. So you're doing all the right things for sure, and that only it just comes with time. And like I think that's what you need. That's what people don't like to hear. It comes with time. But anything training related, nutrition related, anything that's really worth having and doing, takes time.
It's like with this
And
podcast.
as long as you're
like,
consistently doing the right things. That's the thing. It's like, time will take its course. Let me just lay back and hang out.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen. You just have to be continuously doing the right things and taking steps forward, whether that's 10 steps forward or 1 step forward. That's still forward progress. And then let time do its thing.
Yeah, completely agree. It's crazy how much like this podcast has grown from like something that was objectively, subjectively terrible content, man. They were terrible, but it's like, man, it's crazy how now I'm like actually proud. Like I'm actually proud to put it out, and it's like
You should be. You definitely should.
it's like the kind of thing where it's not like I've made these massive changes in direction. It's just like change the name a few times, keep doing the exact same thing, and you just refine it, and then it slowly gets better and better and better. And it's definitely, I 100% agree there. I think that's a big sort of thing that, like, I mean, I've talked about this to an extent with a lot of guests. The whole thing of like, I mean, I don't agree with everything he says. He's definitely controversial, like Jordan Peterson, interesting guy. But like one thing I think is really beneficial that he says is like, okay, like pick up a reasonably heavy burden, and then carry that as reasonably far as you can. And I mean, there's extents to that, but it's like, why would you not? Like, okay, we have so much opportunity nowadays, like, especially if we live in somewhere like New Zealand, man, we have everything at our fingertips. Like, what have I needed to put this podcast together? I have a mic. I could have done it with Apple headphones. Yeah. Like, I have a computer that can record, but any computer can do that. I put it on. I pay like $14 a month for podcast hosting. It's like, man, like everything is at your fingertips, and all you need to do is just put in a little bit of work consistently. It's not like this massive amounts of work for like 5 weeks. It's for like 3 years, but just a little more than average, just a little more than doing what you want to do. And it's so like crazily beneficial. Like it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I think a lot of it comes back to, and Eric says this all the time, and it's really good. It all goes back to your mission statement and your values, and staying true to those always, and working on them. You know, so what's important to you? Why is it important to you? What do you value? Who do you value? And staying with that. That's your guiding light. You know, and some people are trying to get places, and they don't have something that can guide them. It's like, I just want to be successful. Okay, well, what's success to you? Yeah. This. Okay, whatever that is, cool. Dive deeper. What's that mean to you?
Yeah.
Good. Then surround yourself. Find a mentor. Find good people that are in that area, like you're doing. That you're reaching out to these people that are well known in the industry. Surround yourself with them. Learn from them. It's really not that difficult. Yeah. But it's difficult for some people, and again, that's why we're here. People like us to show them, hey, like we can help you.
Yeah. And it's crazy how like it's really difficult to because I only really figured out the actual direction I wanted to head like maybe literally like 6 months, a year ago, because I was all over the place with the podcast. It was like the student side hustle, like, man, it was like I had no clue what I was trying to talk about on there. Like, it was kind of for students, kind of not, but like really all I talked about was fitness. So it was like a mess. And then I sort of figured out like, okay, where would I want to be in like 5 years from now? Yeah. It would be really cool to be like in evidence-based fitness, like as a practitioner, like that'd be dope. And then I thought like, okay, what are some reasonable steps to get there? And it's just, like it's not hard, but again, it is like, it's very, it's just, you have to orient yourself to do the right stuff, like the stuff that you know is going to actually make the difference. Because I think it's very easy, especially in like entrepreneurship, to like sort of think you're making progress. Like I remember when I was like 14, I used to read like a bunch of entrepreneurship books, but I made no moves. Like I would just read the books and I would think that was enough. Yeah. And it's just like, you know, that does not cross apply. Like it has no like it's better to take shitty action than no action at all. Yeah. It's crazy how I'm so grateful for all the terrible podcasts I made, because it's like,
and I think based off that, it's like how your mindset is when you approach situations make all the difference. Because like you said, I had crappy podcasts, shitty podcasts, but like you learn from them. Some people will be like, oh, I had shitty podcasts, it's not worth doing anymore, and they'll stop there. But you're like, okay, I'm gonna go with that growth mindset and say, okay, they were shitty. Why were they shitty? How can I improve? What can I do? And then from there, you're again taking those steps forward. And you have to have that approach of everything's a learning. Everything's learned. Whether you fail, whether you succeed, it's all learning and getting better. And you take that approach with everything, with your life, with training and nutrition, and then again, time and doing things consistently.
It's crazy, man. And then, we'll finish off with this. I want to touch on your PhD a little bit, and then sort of go into what you're doing now, what you're doing in the next few months, and then next few years, months. And so what is the premise of the PhD, and then how is that going so far? So it's really awesome. It's good. I came from the United States, and I came to New Zealand specifically for Eric, because I wanted to be with the best mentor possible for me, and it was him. So it just kept on working out better as I've been here for longer. So I've only been here now for about 4.5 months, so it's still pretty new. But it's really cool because here in New Zealand, PhD is only 3 years, and you're only doing your research. If you're back in the States, PhD is at least 4 years, and in the beginning, you're still taking classes and doing research. So it's like, I got to that point in undergrad starting, but even in master's, it's like, okay, I'm kind of sick of sitting in the classroom and taking tests. And for me, that's not how I learn. I need to be hands-on. I need to be around good people and apply this stuff so I can actually learn it. And teaching others, that's how I learn too. So coming here was perfect because now that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just doing research. I'm helping out other people's projects, and I'm applying the stuff that I know. So it was really cool how they do that here, and I'm glad that I picked it. So what I'm doing now is I'm in the process of, I'm doing like a systematic review, is basically reading all of the research out there now on my topic, and trying to build my rationale for the main study I want to do. So the main thing that I want to look at is ways of optimizing recovery and resistance training. And specifically what I want to see is if implementing a day of lower volume training can actually help facilitate recovery better than other modalities. So maybe better than just doing nothing, better than light cycling, better than massage, cold water immersion, etc. Because I feel like everyone can train hard. Everyone likes training. Yeah. But what do you do like outside the gym? Recovery matters so much. And I just feel that there's some research out there, yes, but there could be a lot more. And I want to fill those gaps and figure out ways of optimizing that recovery so that we're getting, again, the most out of our training and nutrition. So again, seeing if that lower volume day can actually help facilitate the recovery. So right now, it's reading all the research, seeing what's out there. I'll have to do a presentation saying, this is what I want to do. This is why. This research says this, but they're missing this. I'm filling these gaps. And then it's cool the way they do it here at AUT as well is that you can do it many ways, but the way I'm doing is you do smaller studies, so maybe like a week or two studies where you're looking at something acute, and then you can also do your bigger studies, and they're all, again, helping build the rationale to that main question. So the big question, like I said, optimizing recovery and resistance training. At the end of that, I would like to do training studies where we have one group, they're doing, say, training Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so volumes equated, and then one group is doing that lower volume day versus maybe doing nothing, or versus a different type of lower volume, whether it be like a power day, like singles at 80%, or even like 3 sets of 3 at 40%, whatever that might be, don't know exactly yet, and seeing which one helps with strength and muscle gains. And then building that rationale for that with the smaller studies we did before is like, okay, let's see power day 1 versus power day 2, or lower volume 1 versus lower 2. So 6 sets of 1 versus 3 sets of 3 at 40%. Take them through a damaging protocol, and then doing that after and seeing how recovery changes over time. Right. So comparing the current things out there, seeing what my hypothesis and my like lower volume day can do, comparing that, and then putting it in an actual training study too to see that, because there's only so much you can get from acute studies. Training studies you can get a little bit more from. So I'm trying to piece it all together and see how we can get the most of our training, and more specifically the recovery. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's like, I feel like, because everyone loves focusing on like, okay, what is the best training method? How can we do everything to do that? But it's like, recovery is getting a little more like sexy nowadays, but it's still like not getting the light that it should. And it's like, it's cool to see that you're sort of covering a little bit more and sort of going into a little more depth with it. Because I think like something like that is something I haven't like hasn't even crossed my mind. And it's like really cool to think, okay, maybe in a few years that'll be like a thing that'll be a bit more prominent. Because like, for instance, we know something like a deload, fantastic, obviously useful. And then something like this is like an interesting version because like, have you read, it's by Renaissance Periodization, James Hoffman, I believe.
They're like hierarchy of recovery and all that stuff.
Yeah. Like that stuff, super cool. And
really
it's like, most people, like I'm pretty deep into this stuff and I barely know anything about recovery. And it's like, it's such a massive portion of it, but we don't like, so many of us know like nothing.
Dr. James, he does fantastic work in recovery, and I'm actually going to be Skyping with him soon at some point to talk more about it because I really like the approach he has with it. Like, it's very similar to my ideas where it's like, we want people to optimize recovery. Yes, we can train hard, cool, but we need to recover harder in a way. You know what I mean? Like we really do. And recovery is not always just like adding stuff. It's like, okay, what can I do? It's like, well, maybe you need to change up your training first. Maybe you're training too much. It's like, no way, I need to train harder. Like, give me all this stuff. I think it's just more so, I would love to just change the mindset of people when it comes to recovery and training. And just how can we optimize it? How can we enjoy it? And how can we get the most out of it? And stay with it long term. Because like, whether or not people like to think about it, we're in this for the long game. You know, I want to be able to train when I'm like 50, 60, and I would I want to look good and I want to be strong, but I just want to be able to train. I love training, you know? So like, what steps can I take now? I'm 24 now, but it's like, I still need to be thinking about this stuff, you know, because I could potentially be missing out on improvements. And once creating that mindset, once I get to those points where I'm older and training and other things come up, it's like, I already know what I need to do. So, and then again, just, like I said, sharing that with everyone else so that they know what they need to do too.
I think it's fascinating because it's like a lot of the time we'll skip it and it's like not the sexy stuff, but it's so damn crucial, and it's like something that I wish I could be more strict with, because I know like for me, the moment I started thinking about like volume and literally exercise selection, because like I've got scoliosis, spinal fusion, and all my shit's a little bit fucked, and I find certain exercises just mess me up even at tiny volumes. And then the moment I started actually thinking about volume and thinking about, okay, like, do I need a squat? Like, should I actually be squatting? Nah, like, I should probably, like...
Bro, you need to be squatting. What do you mean? It's the king of exercises.
Bro.
Well, so again, going back to what you said a couple of times ago, maybe approaching those things differently, saying like, you really need to squat. Not everyone needs a squat. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to do a hack squat or leg press. You know, it's not for everyone. And so that's cool. It's really cool that you're able to go into your own training with mindset, because then, like you said, you're going to be more prepared to help other people. They'll come to you saying like, I don't, like, squats really hurt me. What should I do? Well, just maybe don't squat. And then you can come with your experience and your knowledge and saying why, and you're backing all this up, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't. So
again, it's crazy that like that doesn't even come into the question a lot of the time. That people will think, they won't even think of, okay, like there's things people won't even think about, like sleep. Like, what's your diet like? Like, is it decent? Like, how much volume are you doing? Like, a lot of people won't even think about these things, but it's like they underpin everything that we do. It's like, it's what's been cool about talking to like Mike Idritel is like the strides that he's made on like MRV. It's like, it's cool because it's like, wow, if you're overshooting your MRV or getting way too close to it too often, you like, seriously, nothing can fix that. And it's like, it's crazy how fundamental that stuff is, but we just ignore it. It's like we've ignored it for so long and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, I don't know. It would be cool with those basic, like, they should be the fundamentals, and it's like we skip those a lot of the time. Like, when you get someone in training, they'll go straight to be like, yeah, but supersets, bro, and then that's the thing they'll go into, or they'll try all these things on like the top of the pyramid, when like, as people like Eric and RP have sort of outlined, it's like there is a pyramid, and we should probably start at the bottom, like, for obvious reasons, and like you're going to get better benefits from starting at the bottom too. But I think a lot of the time it's like maybe ego or something makes us want to jump steps and think, nah, I'm above that, bro. Like, that was definitely me. Like, 1 year into lifting, I thought I knew everything. Man, like, I Jesus, man, Dunning-Kruger effect hit me like a truck.
Yeah.
Like, Oh my gosh.
It happens a lot though, and that could lead you down some bad paths. Where you're approaching those people who are asking questions like, "What do you mean? That's a dumb question." But so you're a lot better now because you can tell that your mindset switched where you're like, "I need to learn more."
Yeah.
And it all starts from that too, is like the ability to be open-minded and to learn more, because you can learn something from everyone. I don't care if they have a PhD or if they have zero schooling. You can learn something from them.
Yeah.
And people they tend to think, well, if you don't have these letters in front of your name or after your name, it doesn't matter. I disagree, and I feel like we need to do better at that.
It's crazy because it's like there's been some people I've had on this podcast, and I've been like not ready. I haven't like prepared properly. I haven't given them enough respect, and then it's blown my mind repeatedly. Like especially in the early stages, it's like, wow, some people hit you with some knowledge bombs or things you have not even thought about. And it's like, it is, like someone who really blew my mind was Ben Esgro. Like, man.
He is insane. He's
I know.
Such a good human being, first off, but like the knowledge he has is also incredible.
It's off the charts. And it's just like, damn. Yeah. Like the things I ended up talking about with him, it's like, I would not expect him to have that much depth around that sort of stuff. Same as Eric. Like Eric's a fantastic example of this, man. Like, just the knowledge that you think like, okay, they know a lot about getting jacked and nutrition, but like, no, man, it's crazy. It's like you have an in-depth conversation about anything, and these kind of people just blow it out the water. And then you talk to someone, you think like, oh, I found the more I've gotten into this, for a long time I had the mindset of, if they don't like do something extraordinary or they're not like extraordinarily successful, they probably don't have much to contribute to a conversation, especially like if I go to a party with like people of my demographic. For a long time I was very quick to sort of think like, oh, it's going to be boring. They won't have much to contribute. But people have like just unique perspectives seriously bring a lot to the table. And it's kind of cheesy, but it's like, it's true. It's like, it's honestly true. And the moment you disregard everyone else around you's perspective, that's like the moment you're done. And it's just, you're losing so much because you can't even look at that perspective, and it's something I want to constantly remind myself of. I think.
Yeah, that's really cool that you're able to like do like in-depth analysis of yourself and be honest with yourself, because that's really hard. It's really hard to do that. Yeah, it is. And then taking action on that is also difficult. But like you said,
it's you're already taking the right first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's something that I think. Like, my favorite book is Ego is the Enemy, because I know, and that book just blew me out the water. It's just like, but I know that book, it's so hard to actually be able to see your own flaws. It's like literally, it's like how it's very, very difficult to coach yourself at a high level, because it's like emotions are always going to get in the way. You cannot, it's very, very difficult to see your own flaws. And that's, I don't know, it's this dilemma. It's like, okay, do you ask other people for your own flaws, because they won't necessarily give you your own flaws. They won't tell you them. They might not even know them. So it's like, that's something that I think is so fascinating. It would be cool if there was like a way to get super honest feedback. I mean, your friends will tell you to some part, but they're always going to have that like little bit of like, nah, protect his feelings. There's always going to be that.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what I've said before, just surrounding yourself with those good people. Because like, even if it's not necessarily your friends, like for example, this is our first time talking to us together. You know what I mean? But I could tell you're a super good dude. And if you were to ask me something, to be honest with you, I would be honest with you. You know what I mean? Because I mean that's just who I am. But if we have more people who think like that, it's like, hey, I want what's best for everyone, and what's best for you right now is you need me to be honest to you. You know, if we're just looking out for the best in everyone, and it gets to come in the open mind, open heart, that's gonna change it. And you don't know until you just start talking to people, like you said. It's one thing I love to do is just talk to everyone. Like if you ask me, I just
same. Yeah, it's like yesterday I went to the gym with my mate, and like we talked for like 2 hours. Like I had done 2 podcasts that day. Like it was 3 hours of talking before. Then we talked for 2 hours at coffee. We gymmed, didn't talk that much when we gymmed. And then we went and visited this guy after we went to the gym. And it's like, I was talking for like 7 hours that day. But it's like, man, I was like a little drained afterwards. But it's like the best conversations are the ones that just happen. And it's like conversation is the most beautiful thing. Like there's just for me, there's nothing that can match it. Like, I don't know. Like, if I'm always worried about my physical health just because of my spine issues, and it's like if I can't train anymore, I think I'll be all right because I'll just make a shit ton of podcasts.
You will, and everyone will too. Like, like don't get me wrong, training is like I love training so much too, but like it's not my everything. You know what I mean? Because once we start to have that like a big attachment to training and nutrition, it can start to be detrimental. It's like, sorry, I can't hang out with my family because I need to train and I need to meal prep. It's like, whoa. Let's take a step back. But it's like, you should be able to enjoy training, but especially you'll see now like the flexible dieting and the approach of just enjoying things. I think that's good. We need to start practicing that more too. It's like, let's have balance.
Yeah, if you know Steve Hall, I think he's done a very good job of like distilling the things that are useful, like the key things that if you focus on, and then just completely ignoring the minutia. Like in terms of recovery, an obvious example is like people will in the UK they'll do a lot, and I mean it's debatable, but it's like some people think it's minutia. It's obviously dependent on your context, but in the UK bodybuilding scene, there's a ton of like focusing on stuff that I don't think matters that much and making that like the thing they'll talk about all the time instead of like, hey, what about like the classics, volume, like stuff like that. And it's like they'll be focusing on stuff like measuring blood glucose. This is one. If people from the UK scene listen to this, they'll be all up in arms that I said that. But it's a very touchy topic. But yeah, I think, and there's a whole range of things in the UK scene that people get very attached to in terms of like things like recovery that just become minutia, and it's like you can the pyramid is a thing for a reason. Like it works, you know, like it obviously works.
Yeah, and it's you'll get that like whether it's more concentrated in like UK, or you'll get that everywhere where people are focusing on different things. But again, another that motivates me and really inspires me to then put out more good information. Because it's like, okay, I have a lot left to do then. Because if you're telling me people in the UK are struggling with recovery, man, I need to work harder. I need to get this information out there to them, so hopefully they can get the most out of their training. You know, so we're always looking for ways to help people and ways to get the good information out there. And that's good. It's good to hear. And like you said, like, you need to have that open mind to do that and know that you don't know everything. Because if it's like, yeah, I know everything, it's good. Like you're missing out on so many people to help.
Yeah, and it's like the moment you think you know everything, you're done. Like it's just like there's genuinely no point in being there. It's just pure negativity from there. Yeah, like you'll just become more set, and it's like we even in terms of the people who know the most, they don't know everything. So it's like the people who know the most have the most of that mindset of just growing. Yeah, and sort of being able to learn more and taking that into account. It's cool stuff. But should we finish off? So, in terms of what do you, in terms of PT Collective, is there anything you want to make clear there? Anything you want to put out there?
Not this. I don't know, make clear. I just want to, like I say, I'm fortunate that Luke is able to give me the position because it's again another way to then help more people, and it's really cool because. So the PT Collective, if you don't know what it is, they have courses where they train other personal trainers to be really good at what they do, and that's good. And that's a niche that Luke filled in. I know he got rid of Shredded by Science, which was his baby, but he knew that long term this was going to be better, and that's awesome that he did that, and I appreciate that he did that. So again, just getting information out there that people need to hear. So a lot of stuff that I'll be posting, it's you get a little bit of everything. You get some general population stuff, like one recent post we just did, it's like, does eating before bed really like make you gain extra weight? People like us are like, no, obviously not. But some people don't know that, you know? And that's why it's really cool that I guess I said earlier, like having that spectrum of PhD work to then work with Gen Pop, because you really need to think about how other people think and how they're approaching these topics, and then providing them with actual knowledge. So it's a good place to, like you said, what you're trying to do is get better at that. It's a good place to learn how to do that and be open, because in the comments we'll have people saying like, well, what about this? Because you'll get people who like know what they're talking about, of course, but you can have better discussions there. And some people don't know what volume is, you know, and that's where we can say, hey, this is what volume is, and they trust us, and you put them on the right path as opposed to trusting someone else. So I think it's just a really good place and a really good thing that's going on where we can get more education out there, create a really good community of people that want to get better and want others to get better too. So it's
Yeah,
really,
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's like one of the there's like a few companies in this sort of fitness space that are just absolutely crushing it, and it's like PT Collective is another one. It's like, man, like it's just it's really cool because you see companies. One, they work great as a business, but then apart from that, they're doing a positive influence on the space, which is cool to see. It's like a lot of people in fitness, they'll come and they don't really make the space better, but then it's like certain companies will just really do a fantastic job of just not capitalizing on money. They're just doing it in a fantastic way for the people. It's like it's cool to see, man. It's like, yeah, I think it's really cool that you're working there because I think you'll do a great deal of good there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's the goal. So I think it ties into everything that we said this whole podcast. I know it turned into more of like a mindset one, but when you think about training and nutrition, it is all mindset. So hopefully people can like make those connections and think about more than just training. But yeah, it's like Luke reached out to Eric and Zordos and was like, hey, I'm building this when they're doing Shredded by Science. Like, I know you guys are great at what you do and I want to help people. Can you help me help people? And he just did that for all these really good people, Dean Somerset, James Krieger, and then came to me too. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is what I want to do. We can help so many people. So you're building this community, again, where you can help so many people. So
That's fantastic. And then where can people find you? So PT Collective Instagram, and then where's your Instagram or any of the other work that you do?
Yeah, find me on MySpace. You can maybe be on my top 8. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Instagram. So like you said, I don't use it too much now, my personal one, just because I don't like being on my phone all the time, and I only use it for maybe like business purposes. So like, but I'm trying to be on it more, and I'm on the PT Collective one a lot more too. So find me at PT Collective or my Instagram, just Colby period then Sousa, and that's Facebook. I don't really use either, like just messaging friends from home. But if you want to find me, Instagram is the way to go.
Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you give us a review or you really enjoyed the episode. Let me know any feedback. I'm always open to any criticism, anything like that. Reach out to me on Instagram at James_Walsham. Or if you'd like to follow my business account, follow at the Hypertrophy Hub. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you would like to help the show, there's a list of ways to do so in the show notes. But if you're wondering how, the best thing to do is just give us a review on iTunes or just let me know how the show can be improved. Thank you very much.